Well, I'm excited, so excited to get your thoughts on this topic. I did not listen to the interview on Saturday with you and McDonough and Moyer on purpose. So folks who aren't in the Twitterverse, there's some chatter. It goes on every year, but there's some chatter that the way we're doing college wrestling, changes need to be made, or we risk, maybe our sport becoming a little less popular. So let's just start from the top, Gabe. What do you think is the biggest problem with college wrestling now?
Well, we're incentivized to just compete really 3 days out of the year. I mean, you look at it structurally, right? And all the most successful sports organizations are run like businesses. So, why does everybody tune in on every Sunday for NFL football game? It's because it holds stakes throughout the year that you have to hit these certain benchmarks. Wild card. You're trying to get in a wild card spot if your team's average, and then you're trying to lock in that first seed and have home field advantage in the bye week going into the playoffs if you're really competing well. So we just, I don't even know where to start. It's just, I kind of noticed it. I kind of noticed it at the Big Tens last year. I was there watching Max, and the last day, there was just forfeit after forfeit after forfeit, and all these placement matches that, a lot of really highly ranked guys people were looking forward to. And then even one in the finals. And the next morning, I actually was having coffee with my mom at just a local place in Lincoln, and one of the Big Ten network guys just happened to sit down next to us, and we were talking about ratings. And that final day, it just tanked their ratings because, one, they didn't know all those forfeits were going to happen. The coaches did not give a heads up, and then two, it just, even if you were to have the prep time to announce that all those matchups weren't going to happen, people just turned it off. So, and I've kind of laughed because I'm seeing people saying, well, wrestling is the most popular it's ever been. And I'm like, well, wrestling was just added to the Big Ten network. So yes, our numbers are up, but what is sustainable? And then women's wrestling is growing like mad, which is awesome. So, but I think that's giving a huge bias towards like our actual growth and sustainability into the future. So,
yeah, so last year, the Big Tens, it was obvious, and it was ugly because it's our big day for the Big Ten Network. That's like that's their Super Bowl, right? The Big Ten championships. So I think there's the medical forfeit issue. Why is that come up, you think, so recently? Or is it just every year we think it is?
Well, I don't want to be like the guy that like just says like broadly, like, the character of kids, and is like decreasing. I just feel, and Matt and I talked about this on the show. We both had the same opinion. Even when we were competing, and we were, not that long ago. I mean, we're not necessarily spring chickens anymore, but but we weren't like that long ago, and we just, it mattered, like there wasn't really too much thought into like, are you going to compete or are you not? That wasn't like, if you were, unless you had a real serious injury, you were competing. I mean, it's just a standard that was held, across the board. And I think now you have two things happening. One, I don't think there's a level of expectation there. Kids definitely, I mean, just, I think the media gets worse and worse, so the level of expectation is not the same in the standard. And I think the NIL stuff has hurt it a lot too. And I say that because we've shifted the focus of, why we compete, because we're competitors and we love to do it, as to now it's about my brand. It's about how much money I can make. It's about protecting all this, which just quite frankly sucks, because it sucks for the fan. And at the end of the day, the sport completely is dependent on the consumer is the fans. It is not the wrestlers. It's not the coaches. It's not the athletic directors, it's the fans. And if you don't got anybody tuning in to watch, if you don't have anybody in the stands watching, you really just don't have a sport. I mean, would the NFL continue to play football games with no fans? No network deals, nothing like that? No. So, 10 years ago when this was visited, a couple of the changes we need to make, the NCAA asked the coaches and the athletic directors, and I'm like, of course, it's great. They have to be on the same page, and they have their concerns with change, which is valid. But at the same time, we're asking the wrong pool of people. I put out a Twitter poll just for the fun of it. How many people would come to a dual meet national championships if it was structured like basketball, long weekend? And I think even you were the one that, or I can't remember who suggested like an Elite Eight, then a Final Four, then, lead up to the, and 94% of the people out of 600 people voted, yes, I would be there, So I just feel like we're asking, hey, should we change to the wrong group of people that, and from a just like a consumer and product standpoint.
That's an interesting way to look at it, is that, yeah, asking the coaches, and I think someone on Flow said this, it'd be like Roger Goodell asking Bill Belichick about a season change or a structure change. Like, they're not going to do
They
that.
don't change. I mean, Bill Belichick doesn't pick his schedule. Something that's really interesting about college wrestling, and I don't know how many people know this, but the college coaches pick their schedules outside of their conference.
Mm.
So if you're the head coach of Illinois and I'm the head coach of NC State, you're calling me up to try to convince me to wrestle you. And that's a huge issue because the coaches, there's the personal agenda of coaches. There's the overall program as a whole. There's, you obviously don't want to like have your guys in just a grueling matchup every day. But at the same time, I think it's weird that coaches pick their schedule out of conference. It's like nobody does that. Nobody. I mean, I don't know about other NCAAs. I mean, I know college football doesn't do that, but the like the big sports organizations, they have a commissioner, they have a board, they have people outside of the coaches picking the schedules and developing that in a very in a way that promotes viewership into the fan base.
Because that's like the overarching goal. Like everything is geared towards that. Like, what's going to make it a better viewing product? And so they're going to do whatever they can.
If wrestling's a product, how can we put the best product forward? Now, happy medium through keeping athletes healthy and keeping them, the gruelingness of wrestling. I understand that. And I think that's some of the coaching concerns, which are valid. But if wrestling is a product, how do we put the best product forward? Well, right now we're doing a terrible, terrible job of that. I mean, I didn't watch the Skull Florida Midlands this year. I mean, everybody medically forfeited out, or B teams were showing up, and nothing against those kids, but like what everybody wants to see 1 and 2 or 1 and 3 or 1 and 4 or 2 and 6, or everybody wants to see the top 10 matchups and the ranked matchups. And the more that we're losing that because of our structure, we're just not on a sustainable path.
And the weird part is that the amount of matches they're wrestling now are way less than the amount of matches there were even like your freshman year. I looked it up, 43-3. Incredible record, by the way. 46 matches though. That is and so like that, I was thinking about it. I don't know how many sports over the last 15 years that are growing have reduced their schedule by a third, or reduced the viewing opportunities by a third.
That's a great point too. I mean, the opportunities just to even view the matches, right? By a third, that 33% decrease is substantial. And can you imagine if we lost a third of the football season or a third of the basketball season or any of the big power sports? If they just wiped out a third of their competition. I mean, that's a huge, huge revenue loss, and it would just be such an impact just from a financial standpoint.
Right.
But that's a great point too. When in my first year, like I didn't win any open tournaments. I took a lot of lumps, and so I wrestled back. Like I'd lose like second round and wrestle 6 matches back and take 6th. I wrestled 74 matches my first year in college.
Whoa!
Between folks out, between folk style and freestyle.
Wow.
And it's probably, obviously that's not sustainable. You should not do that every year, but that's why I think I transitioned. So that's a huge reason why I transitioned so well from high school to college, because I got 74 college matches, or 74 matches at the college and senior level.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't win one tournament, but it definitely was like, it got me ready for the next year, which I still wrestled 46 matches next year. And I wrestled, I think, 159 matches or 160. I can't remember the number, but right around there in my total career, which is about 40 matches a year, plus the 74 from the first year. And I just think about that and I'm like, there's some guys' records, they're like in the teens going into nationals.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's insane. I just think it's crazy. Like,
do you think it's that the semester's too long, and so they're wanting to kind of rest up and not cut through all the holidays?
I think ideally I mean, this would take a lot of change, but ideally for the sport of wrestling, where we'd be sitting is, we definitely need to take the team championship and make it a dual meet format. I mean, I just, even like watching, and I actually watched the duel, even watching like Wisconsin and Illinois go at it was awesome, right? I mean,
Awesome,
they're
man.
just like a team format where like matchups and the stakes are so awesome, and they impact the duel and the outcomes, and you know, and it's totally different in a team tournament format, what would happen as opposed to a duel. So we 100% need to go to a dual format for the team national championship. And then and it would not impact the individual championship at all. If anything, it would help promote it. But then I think it needs to be a strictly spring semester sport. Your dual meet championships would, you'd have your regular season playoffs championship, and that would run from the beginning of January, probably through the end of February to maybe right at the beginning of March, and then it would cut. And then, you have your team championship, and it would switch over into the individual season. Then you'd have, your individual tournaments, and then your national tournament and your conference and national tournament leading up to that.
So you would do the team championship before the individual championship?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I
And
find myself,
I would condense it, 4.5 months total out of the year. It would, and another thing, like, it would just make wrestling more fun, right? Kids are able to go home for the holidays, spend time with their families, they're able to eat, they're able to, relax and train through that time, and it would just make it more fun and more enjoyable. And the individual championships now and the team championship would not be competing with basketball. The team championship would end at the end of February, maybe the first weekend in March. And that's right when March Madness is ramping up. And then the individual championship would be, at the end of April, maybe right at the beginning of May. And
yeah.
you wouldn't be competing with March Madness now.
Yeah. No, it's been talked about for years. A lot of the diehards, they get their feathers a little ruffled when you talk about moving it from March. And I get that. There's tradition there. And so that's best case scenario, I think, is starting it in January, running it through, and doing the individuals in April. I don't
If
think
we did anything traditionally like we did 100 years ago, though, a lot of things wouldn't be working right now. We have to adapt and change. And as much as I love diehard old school wrestling fans, if you took a guy that wrestled 80 years ago and you wrestled him against Kyle Dake right now, and they were both Olympic, what would happen, right? Things have to adapt and change, and the wrestling's adapted and changed, so I get, and that change is hard, being able to adapt and adjust is a very difficult thing for a lot of people, because, they're comfortable in their ways, but we have to look at the overall picture of where we want to get to, and what are the stepping stones to get there. And right now we're in a system where, quite frankly, I mean, we're like trying to deplete the sport. I mean, I really feel that way. I mean, you can't have a sport where only 3 days every year matter.
But we've always said that with a badge of honor.
I
All that
know,
matters is March.
and I'm saying the badge of honor, I think we've been we've been
duped.
outed. Yeah, we're doing ourselves. It's like the 3 days, making a sport just 3 days out of the year where the stakes are the stakes are at that high is just a terrible terrible setup for us. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's going to eventually deplete the sport completely.
So I have some ideas. I often find myself thinking about this on my leisurely neighborhood walks. If you could do anything, I have an idea for if you could do anything and an idea within the existing framework. If you could do anything, I think we should have, let's say it's a 4-month season.
Yep.
You can start it whenever you want.
Yep.
Month 1 is tournament season. There are 6 official NCAA ranking tournaments. A wrestler has to attend 1 ranking tournament to be able to qualify for the individual tournament. After that first month, then we enter the dual season. You do you set a limit on 12, 16, 18, 20 duels, whatever it is, probably less, probably like 12 to 16. And a wrestler has to compete in like 75% of them. At the end of the dual season, let's just say the Big Ten season, at the end of that season, you have the regional round where it's getting up to the Final Four. Then you have the Final Four, like you were saying, for the dual championships.
Mm-hmm. Multi-day event.
Multi-day event. It's going to be could you imagine getting the 4 best dual teams? I mean, just watching Frank's event at the Journeyman event every year, it's
in a playoff system, like start with 8 and they're hosted regionally. And then, those winners go into the Final Four and, you go quarterfinals, semifinals, national championship, but you come together for a weekend for those 4 best teams. Or even if you decided to do 8, I still think it'd just be incredible.
Be electric. And it wouldn't diminish the individual tournament. It would just get everyone excited to see everyone again in a month.
There's no way it would diminish the individual tournament.
No,
I could say it with a lot of confidence that it wouldn't.
Yeah. And then it's like, if you did that, even forget the ranking tournament thing. Just say, kids wrestle on a lot. Let's just say all they have to do is compete in 75% of the duels and then complete the dual playoff. That is like, it just enhances it so much.
Yeah. It 100% does. And it makes duels matter. Like that's my biggest thing. It's like, it makes it matter right now. Kids wrestle in duels, 1, because there's somewhat expectation, right, for them to wrestle for their team. 2, it's just getting ready, trying to get some matches in. I mean, but really, in all reality, I mean, you probably wouldn't need to wrestle in much at all, and you could just show up to the conference tournament and then get to the national tournament.
Right.
Would be beneficial to you? Obviously not, but that's the kind of system we have in place right now.
Yeah, I think the big thing is you have to count medical forfeits as a loss. I know a lot of people hate that idea, but I think you have to count medical forfeits as a loss.
Don't care if you hate it, you got to do it. Like, yes, is it unfortunate for the kids that, are actually hurt and can't compete? Sure, but that's just part of the risk that comes with the sport. I mean,
I think you also have to set, if you look at NCAA football, there's a game requirement. The season, I don't know what it is, 14 games, 12 games. That's the requirement. You can't do less than 14 games.
Can you medically forfeit a football game?
Right. Like, you can't skip a game.
And it doesn't count on your record?
Right. That'd be like Michigan not playing Ohio State in the game because they wanted to go to
the finals. They want to be in the 4 in the playoff.
Right.
That's exactly what that is.
It's lunacy. It makes you sick to even say it out loud. But that's exactly what it is.
That's what we're doing. That's what's happening. Like, that's been my point. I'm like, medical forfeits have to count as a loss when you say it in other sports terms. And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, hey, let's take our sport and the current structure that's in place and plug it into just a different sport. Let's use football. Let's use basketball. Let's use any other sport as an example. What does it sound like when you say that? Yeah, you know what, Michigan, we got a better record. We got a better, RPI. We got better statistics. We're not going to play in this game because it could potentially hurt us getting into the playoff. Instead, we're not playing in this game is securing us a spot in the playoff.
It's disgusting.
Man, I just don't know how you rationalize that. I mean, and like I said, it's somewhat unfortunate for the kids that are, actually get hurt, and there's definitely circumstances like that, but it's still so overwhelmingly an issue, and you really see it this year. I mean, I think this year out of any year in the history of college wrestling, it is very adamant how detrimental it is to the sport.
Yeah. And so if medical forfeits are a loss, let's say that we establish that any tournament's not part of the season. The official season is 16 dual meets. And if wrestling's an individual sport, people get hurt. So maybe you can't make them wrestle on every duel. But if you had to set a minimum and say, to be able to compete in the Big Ten individual championships, you must compete in how many of the 16 dual meets? What would you say? 10? 12?
12.
If you can't muster up 12 dual meets, yeah, bro.
And you're going to compete in the ones that, as the stakes get higher, right?
Right.
But what's going to happen, Ryan, is that you would compete in 16 because the regular season, whatever that is, maybe the first, let's say the first whatever many duels the regular season is, that's going to have direct impact on the playoffs. And then that's going to have direct impact on how you get to the national championship. So now you are creating a system that's healthy, that puts the stakes at the right level to incentivize competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And and I've thought even from a fiscal standpoint too, the NCAA should come up with a system where, just like in football, now obviously it's not going to be as much because football is huge, just such a much bigger sport than wrestling. It's not even close. But now you can really incentivize coaches and staffs to hit those benchmarks. Okay, you go undefeated in conference play. There's a bonus structure there.
Mm-hmm.
You make it to the X round in the playoffs. There's a bonus structure there. Your national championship bonus structure, runner up bonus structure. I mean, I don't know if people realize all these football coaches are making bonuses along the way right now. I mean, whoever wins the national championship game tonight, I guarantee in that coach's contract, along with his staff, that's a nice chunk of change coming into their pockets. So let's restructure it that way. And it would just be way more, it'd promote the sport way more. And it would be so much fun. I mean,
so much fun. And it's like, that's the best part, is it sounds a little communistic what we're suggesting here, but it's like, if you don't make the rules that way, the coaches are going to do whatever. And so you have to set a dual meet schedule number. That's the season. Maybe it's 16 duels, maybe it's 12, whatever it is. That's the college season, is 16 duels done. From there, you go on to the playoff, then to the finals, and then we get on to the individual season. Like, it's such a common sense thing that every other sport, what's the first thing they have is they have a set season. We don't have that.
That they don't set.
Right.
Coaches don't decide that.
Right.
There is a committee, there's a board, there's external third-party factors that set that season. Mel Tucker's not calling up the head coach of Georgia and saying, "Hey, you want to play this year?" That's not happening.
Right.
So there has to be a committee that's goes through and methodically sets that up with in mind viewership, driving viewership.
Think about that. Like, let's say, I don't know if there's a 16 dual season, how many would be like a conference schedule? Maybe like 10. But to be able to set up 6 awesome out of conference duels would be so much fun. I mean, like send an Iowa out to Arizona State, or you just all kinds of different scenarios.
Well, think of the national duels, and we've tried to do this, and like you said, Frank Papalizio and everybody's tried to do this, but there is no stakes. Like, we're just doing it, like, to do it. And I think like New Orleans would be an awesome, I think we should have it in an awesome place like that.
Mm-hmm.
That Final Four, that national championship, like, do it somewhere that's easy to get to and people enjoy coming down and, getting Airbnbs and hotels and, like that. Like, where's the national championship game this year? I think it's in LA.
Yeah.
Like that's like just, and I'm not saying LA is that great of a place actually, but like it's usually in a fun place for fans too, So
we're heading to Tulsa this year, Gabe.
yeah. I mean, not that I'm like,
not that I'm knocking Tulsa here, but
yeah, I'm not knocking Tulsa either, but like, would it be sweet if it was in, somewhere in Florida or somewhere in Texas or somewhere in, the Carolinas or just anywhere that's like got a beautiful venue and it's not nice and people can walk outside and it's warm weather and it's sunny and it's just, it's that and it's easy to get to.
You know what arena was great was the Fort Worth one for the trials.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah.
It was like
Fort Worth was awesome. It was super nice. You could walk outside. It was very easy to get around. Um, it was great. I mean, as a competitor, it was fantastic. So have it somewhere in there, have it somewhere like that, and then put all the stakes in place. So
yep. I love it. I think we're getting somewhere. I just wish there was a way to do it because it only helped these guys NIL value. Like the more popular the sport becomes, the more money they're going to make through NIL. Like
100%. And I think they're thinking, well, if I lose this match or if I wrestle in this and lose, it's going to hurt my brand. And I'm like, no, it's also opportunity cost on increasing your brand, you know. But if you put this in place that had all these stakes and all this just hype and fun, it's only going to help their exposure and help them make more money.
I agree.
I don't like the NIL. I'm not a fan.
Not a fan. How do you feel about the transfer portal?
It's out of hand. I'm not saying I'm a completely not a fan of the NIL stuff. I I think the NIL and the transfer portal both need to be reined in a lot more. I think it's crazy what's going on in college sports because now you can pretty much buy recruits to go to schools. I mean,
how does that work? Like, how do you mean?
Well, like, let's say, let's say I'm a, let's say I'm the head coach of an Ivy League school, right? I don't have athletic scholarships, to compete with Big Ten and all the other conferences. Well, now that I can, you can use your name and image and likeness to, make money. I call up one of my wealthy alums and I say, hey, you have a huge manufacturing business, whatever it is. Uh, I really want to be able to get this kid to Cornell, but he's got full scholarships from X amount of schools. Your company is going to sponsor him now for the full amount it would cost to go to Cornell or wherever, any Ivy League school, you know. And now you go back to that kid and his parents, you say, hey, so and so is going to now, X company is now going to be able to sponsor you and you get to go to school for free. I mean, that's what's going on. It's not just going on in wrestling. I mean, it's happening. I do think it's happening in wrestling at some sort of level, but it's definitely happening in football. Kid has a good season, but his team's not that good. He's like, you know what? My stock's going up. I'm going to go in the transfer portal and then get bought by Georgia or Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a great example. All of a sudden, they have the world's greatest recruiting class. I mean, I think it's diminished now, but it was at one time like the best recruiting class ever. I mean, it was like some absurd amount of 5-star recruits.
They crumbled this year too.
They crumbled, but it's not a coincidence. Texas A&M is also the wealthiest university in America. They got all the big oil money coming through that place, and they're literally buying recruits. I don't care if Jimbo Fisher gets on and is like, we got integrity, we got all this. It's like, well, to a certain extent, now it's legal. You can do it, but don't say that you're not doing it because the NIL stuff and the transfer portal are going hand in hand right now. You're able to buy kids.
Do you think it's it's so blatant that the coach is telling the recruit and his parents that so and so is going to call you, or do you think the call just comes in randomly and he doesn't ever speak about it?
Probably has to be really careful about his wording and I'm sure coaches do. I'm sure they jump into the very gray area and do that, but I'd say it's probably a mixed bag. the alumni is obviously going to introduce himself, and or maybe the the sales associate or whoever's in charge of the marketing for the company.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the alumni directly because maybe that's a little too gray, but you know, there's definitely it doesn't take long for the kid to figure out what's going on. So
Yeah.
oh yeah, X school just visited me, and now I'm getting a call from the marketing department of this guy's company. Oh, he actually graduated from that school that just visited me. Like especially in the wrestling world, it's small. So like,
Pool cleaning business, huh?
yeah, 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 whatever it is, it's like, oh, no kidding, yeah. So I mean, and that's just going to get worse. It definitely has to be reined in. I mean, it's ridiculous that you can just get in a transfer portal and in like no time at all, just have a different uniform on and be competing on a different team. Like I mean, that's insane to me. There's no more loyalty. It's impossible to, I mean, I really feel for like the big time sports because it's like you got
Could you
probably
imagine?
you got parents calling head coaches saying, where's my son's NIL deal, or where's, if you don't get him this, and then he's getting in the transfer portal and leaving, and the coaches had enough BS to deal with, trust me, before all this crap. So there's just so much, it just adds so much. It just takes away from why we compete. That's what I struggle with. I'm like, why do you compete? Do you compete for money? Do you compete for fame? Do you compete for validation, or do you compete because you love it? Like it's part of, what flows through your blood. When you just the pride and the opportunity to be able to step out on the field, on the court, on the mat, whatever it is, like the pureness of sport, we've just we just I just feel like we're destroying it.
And the crazy thing is that, this as well as I do, we do anything to go back and have some more matches in college. Like when you're 10 years out in business or whatever it is, no one remembers you that long. Like it only takes a few cycles until it's all over anyway.
As long as I get my conditioning back, heck yeah. I but I 100%. I mean, like it goes so fast. I mean, it really does. I mean, I turned 28 in June, so about, half a year, and I can remember like when I was 18, like yesterday, just stepping on campus for the first time. Um and it's just nobody knows who you are, and especially in wrestling. I mean, unless you're like one of the unique ones, you're consistently making world and Olympic teams and winning medals, and that's very few. You, your window in this sport, if you're doing this sport for fame or attention or any of that kind of stuff, your window is so short, um, that it just you really got to have another reason why you decided to compete and go through it. It the only reason I'm still somewhat relevant is because I have a brother that's competing in college, um, which is awesome. Like I can't tell you how many times, Ryan, like people are like, "Hey, you're Max Dean's brother." Yeah,
Hell yeah.
yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's what I prefer, anyways.
Dude, what was it like when he won last year, that feeling?
Oh man, I mean, you know, you, I would say you do it yourself, which is an incredible feeling. I mean, walking off that stage and being able to say you're an NCAA champion and all the hard work that went into that is an incredible feeling. And I would say like if I thought that was a 10, Max winning an NCAA title is a 20. Like
Wow.
at least doubles the value. Um, it's just such a because you love that person so much, and you just it's like you've never wanted something more for um for like and you wouldn't even hesitate to say, oh, I would give up one of mine so he could get his. And I'm
Right.
not just saying that because like I'm like selfless. I'm just saying like that's how you just feel. when your siblings out there competing and putting everything on the line. And just to see him accomplish it is just, yeah, I mean, I figured, I mean, I'm gonna have children someday. That'll probably, you know, be number one, and then marriage. That'll be number two. But it's hard to imagine if another feeling, past that you could put, on that ladder. So
Wow. That's amazing. I just watching and seeing the pictures of you guys was awesome. And so it's yeah, I was just dying to know. And speaking of it, you're engaged, right?
I am. I just got engaged. Yep.
Congrats, brother. That's
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you. Yeah, you're going on. I heard you're going on your honeymoon this week, right?
Big one, man. Yeah, leaving on Friday.
Where
So
you guys headed?
New Zealand.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it should be it'll be fun, man. It'll be a good time. It's long flight though. Like
How far?
Like 16, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, congrats, man. That's awesome too.
thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I wanted to get to a few other questions from Twitter just because there was a few in here that I was curious myself.
Sure.
One of the things is that someone talked about your football days, and you said how you love multi-sport athletes. What is it that you really like about that?
Well, I mean, if you really want to first of all, I think the most important thing for any kid that's developing, and the approach that my parents took, which I think is, I was super blessed to have the mother and father that I did and the role models in my life. But I think the first thing is that you want to play multiple sports because you're going to get much more out of your childhood. Like playing football in high school and wrestling in high school, for me, it was a great break from each one. And I learned so much from each experience. So my development was, mentally and physically I feel like increased exponentially. But when you get to college, that is your job. I mean, like I said, I wrestled 74 matches that first year, then almost 160 for the rest of my career. Like, if you've been hitting that hard your whole life, you're way. I mean, it's scientifically proven. You're way more prone to injury. You're way more prone to being burnt out. I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, a lot of the best kids in the country that get into college wrestling that you never hear about again. I wasn't one of them. And when you get to that college level, you have to be internally motivated. Mom and dad are not going to be there to hold your hand. And I think playing multiple sports teaches you how to be disciplined, how to be motivated, keeps you healthy, keeps you developing, gives you a break from one or the other, but keeps you active and moving and, moving towards an ultimate goal. And I think that kid's curve, as opposed to just a single sport athlete their whole life, is way higher when they get into the college level.
I think it's good, and I hope more people are hearing that message. And it reminded me of something you said the first time we spoke that I still remember to this day, around like internal discipline. And you go, when you take more pride in your discipline than you do your wins and losses, you become a dangerous wrestler. And bro, to this day, I think about that.
Become a dangerous athlete. I mean, when you stop caring about winning and losing and you take more pride in your preparation and everything that's in your control, then what the outcome of any competition is, it is amazing. Not only the weight it takes off your shoulders, but how detail oriented you get. That is a direct correlation to your success and winning. But you have to let go of trying to control the uncontrollable, which is the outcome.
Detail oriented. I didn't really think about that. So
I tell it when I talk to kids all the time, I'm like, become the best in the country at preparing. Like, you become the NCAA champion at preparation, because that gives you so much confidence. If I know nobody's out preparing me, the way I eat, the way I sleep, the way I train, the way, to the very nth degree, I know when I walk on the mat, that I'm in the best possible position I could possibly be in to compete at the highest level. And that confidence comes from how you prepare. So I just think that, but if you're completely focused on winning and losing and completely clouded by that, it takes away from being disciplined in preparation.
So like, how maniacal were you about like going to bed and like were you crazy about all that stuff, or what were the big things for you?
To a T,
Really?
like the things I ate and the things like I put in my body, the time that I went to bed, the travel, and how I approach travel, the foods that I would buy, for different parts of the week leading up to competition. You know, just, I I wasn't superstitious, but I was a little stitious. So I would
Right.
stay completely, I figured out what worked for me and what had me feeling and competing at the highest level, and I stuck to that and didn't waver from it.
Man, is Kyle Dake like the ultimate of that? I remember when we went to
Probably,
Texas, he
yeah.
brought like a sync adapter.
Yeah, I don't think, I'll be the first to say I don't think maybe on the level of Kyle is. I mean, Kyle's like, and directly correlates to his success too, but Kyle would probably sit here and tell you the same thing, preparation is everything to him. He takes everything so to a granular level, and just, travel around and being his training partner and helping him, the way I could for a couple of years there. Just front row seats to a guy that puts his heart and soul into preparing to compete at the highest level.
And how do you look at, now that you're in the business world, I mean, the rate you're growing for a young man in the business world, 28, is just amazing to see. And I'm sure a lot of it's tied to wrestling. How do you look at like your preparation in business on a daily basis?
Oh, I would say it's like, uh, and thank you. I think we are building something really special here. And I, I, I think that the big difference, the difference between wrestling and the business world is like you have to work with like a lot of people, and not that you're a part of a team in wrestling, but like if you take care of yourself, you take care of the team. Like it's kind of the way it is. It's more
That's a great
selfish.
quote.
It's just the truth. In the business world, you're working with multiple different personalities, multiple different to get to a common goal. So there's like, it's more like a team, I'd describe it way more towards like a football team that's trying to compete at the highest level. These people are all really good in their different positions, and you're just, you're working with them and trying to support them in the different areas to get to the common goal, which is not an end destination. Businesses, it continues, we got continue to push till, till you retire, till you die, or whatever you decide to stop. So I think that was a big transition for me, is like I would push so hard and then boom, March would happen. And it was like, okay, I'm done for a little bit. I'm gonna take some time off and then, wait till, the preseason ramps up or freestyle, whatever. And, this never ends. Uh,
Right.
so, uh, but I would say the things that are very similar are, um, I'd say 10% of the people do 90% of the work. So you have to build around, especially as a startup, which we are. You have to build around amazing, very hardworking, disciplined, all the same values that you look for in a great wrestler. You need to bring those people into your company. And because at the beginning, 5 people are going to be doing 25 people's jobs,
Right.
and then that obviously grows, and you're able to take more and more pressure off that core group. But the similar values that you look for in a great wrestler and what makes a great wrestler are the same things that you look for and build around in a business. And we've been lucky enough and fortunate enough to have those individuals, which a lot of them have come through the wrestling world and network. So
And you guys are building stuff, like actually building the stuff, hands on, heavy metal, iron. Like, are you right? I mean,
I
what's the
mean,
day in the life like?
yeah, we're white steel manufacturing company with and we created a real estate investment company at the same time. So they kind of go hand in hand. Our niche that we're focusing in, we build a product that drives valuation, has huge tax incentives, and gets us a great return quickly, as opposed to probably a lot of different other models. So we've created a really really unique model through trial and error, and a lot of different, piecing a lot of different things together. But I've got to, really settle into a great business plan, which has allowed us to grow quickly. We definitely are doing a lot. We created a property management team within the company. We're becoming a developer. We're manufacturing, and we're a real estate investment, for becoming a real estate investment company too.
So are your customers end users who want to put one in their backyard, or are your customers people who own a huge fleet of properties and they want to offload it, or they want to build like a new storage facility?
The customers that we started as a retail company, and just because probably I didn't know what I was doing. So, you just get in there and you just start figuring it out. So we started kind of as a
slinging from the hip, dude.
Yeah. Kind of have you kind of have a generalized plan, but you have to continue to change and adapt quickly, in order to stay, above water. So that was really at the beginning. And, we started at, putting it in people's backyards, selling them like they were sheds for your backyard, and which was great. Actually worked well. But what we realized quickly was like, that's just a single transaction. How are we going to create wealth, drive assets, drive equity, and continuous cash flow? Yes, do you get to a certain level of volume of retail sales? I can do that, and you can. But how do we take benefit? This product is a unique product. The engineering and the way that we manufacture, it's very unique. We don't let anybody in our shops without signing an NDA, just because it's so unique. So how do we take this high efficiency system, but put it into combine it with a system that's not just one-off transactions? We take benefits of the margin of the retail, but also drive eternal cash flow and value. And that's when we were like, we should probably transition away from the backyard and start looking at acquiring and developing real estate. Now, these wouldn't work in like a strip mall. We're not going to be buying strip malls and putting sheds all over the place. What are the like asset classes that we should be targeting? And once you put the financing and start working with the right banks and putting the debt structure in the right place, that's when the business and got into acquiring assets, and those assets buying, and acquire and driving NOI, and the valuation of the real estate side was driving the manufacturing side, and they started growing together because of the purchase power from the real estate side, but also the units themselves driving that NOI on the real estate side. In the asset classes that we're in, is when the business really started to take off. We were really starting to be able to grow quickly.
It's cool because you're doing it with your family. I see your grandpa on a machine there driving around. I'm like, geez,
Yeah,
they don't play around there in the Dean family. Everyone's working.
My grandpa's 81 years old. He's unbelievable. I draw a ton of inspiration from him. He does not go a day without working. He's on a forklift in here, moving material around. He's going to different facilities and doing maintenance work on them. I mean, just an incredible person.
He's one of those throwbacks that's probably never been late a day in his life, that kind of thing.
No. I mean, electrician his whole life, and then started a lawn care company for a while. When I was a little kid, he had retired, and he actually really taught. I think a lot of I learned it from my parents too, but a lot of my the work ethic and the drive, and doing 80 to 90 to 100-hour weeks, comes from just being little, and him grabbing me, putting me in the truck, and us pushing lawnmowers all day, and
wow.
He was just such an amazing influence from since I could walk. So, very lucky to be just part of like a very close knit family, and we have other partners too that everybody's values align really well. So, and I think that's what's really important. If you're going to get started in a business and you're going to bring partners in and you're going to grow something, you can you need to have different personalities for the different areas that you're working in, but your values have to align. So, in order for it to be successful.
Well, it's obvious you guys have something special going on there, and it's awesome to watch from afar. Last question for you, Gabe Dean, is one of the questions you said we were going to tackle here is mindset going into match with one Bo Nickel, and just in general, I'd love to talk about mindset going into matches, but in particular, if that one sticks out to you.
Yeah, that was a good question. I will say I don't and definitely not. I mean, I lost a match, and what happened. I definitely don't want to take away from that when I say this. But I definitely wasn't in a great place. I I had I had some personal stuff going on in my life, and I also that was weighing pretty heavy on me, and I also and I let get to me, and that's my own fault. Complete let that distract me from the task at hand, and then I in the conference tournament 2 weeks earlier had torn cartilage in my rib, so which I'd never experienced that before. It's not fun. It kind of makes it like when you breathe, it hurts. So I think I let all that distract me. I was kind of focused on walking into that match. I not no fear, no nerves from the the competition, just more cloudy, just not. And I think I wrestled, that year I'd wrestled so clear, so on task, so just focused on points and scoring and dominating. And I definitely was not. And I think the whole NCAA tournament really, I was a little. I don't think I actually for all the competitions of that year, I think I actually competed the NCAA tournament. I competed the worst. So
And normally you would feel a certain way or have a certain routine before a match, and it was different from this one, the way you felt.
it was different. It was just, it's like I, I wasn't like excited. I was more like, okay, let's see, let's get this done. Let's see if I can pull it off and get this third national title. It was more like almost something like I drag, like I had to go get done, as opposed to like, I mean, it's one of my, I tell, and I've told plenty of young wrestlers this, it's like, guys, like something I have to live with every day. And it's one of my biggest regrets is the way I prepared for that tournament and for that final match, mentally. Um, and I just let the things that I really couldn't control at the time become more important than taking care of what the task at hand. And ultimately I lost a lot of things with it. Third national title, probably was in line to win the Hodge Trophy that year, and it's something that I use now to, if kids are going through personal stuff and hard things, like, hey, if you're in the middle of a big competition, the one thing that I fear most is living with regret, and that's definitely an example of that I use when I'm talking to young competitors that maybe be going through something similar or some hard times. So
And what do you think the lesson is there for those kids is to just focus on what you can control?
um, the the things that were affecting me, those things, like, you're gonna deal with those things the rest of your life. I mean, that's just gonna happen. Injuries or personal stuff, like, those things are gonna happen. But you only get this moment maybe once, maybe just a handful of times. Um, so you better know your priorities and where you want your focus to be in time in critical moments. And if you let them get out of whack, like I did, um, you will regret it 100%. Maybe and it's not even that I lost that hurt me so bad. If I would have went out there and ripped it and just been super clear and just on task and focused and prepared, just like my normal self, if I lost, I can live with that. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's no, but the thing that you struggle with the most is all those things that leading up to that moment that you could have done better. And I think that's the thing that eats at you. So.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that, because I know it's going to help at least one wrestler, if not more, and not only wrestlers, just people in general who are trying to accomplish anything. So thank you for sharing that, and thanks for coming on, Gabe. I know you're a busy guy. It's been an honor to have you. Any last words before we sign off, my man?
Well, I just want to say it's been an honor being on Wrestling Changed My Life. I think this is like I know you filmed us, get up to the trial. So if you don't count that, it's like my third interview. So I'm very honored to be on such an amazing podcast. Ryan, you do such a great job. Just love everything that you're doing. You've definitely impacted the sport in such a positive way, and can't tell you how much I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you, brother. Recurring guest, Gabe Dean.
Thanks, man.
That's it, folks. Have a good one, Gabe. We'll be back with another episode this week, folks.
Sounds good, buddy.
Take care.
You too.